These leaks are a major problem for the U.S. Some people have labeled this young airman as a traitor, others call him a whistleblower, but however you feel about his intentions and actions, what he did is having a major impact on U.S. national security. Now, I'm not going to be diving into the details of the leaks in this video. I haven't viewed the documents personally, don't plan to, and in turn won't be sharing them here. I'm still a member of the U.S. military, and as such, it's not appropriate for me to disseminate any sort of classified materials, even if they're already plastered all over the internet. So none of this here is going to be intended to prove or disprove what has been released. I'll leave that up to the many, many journalists and analysts that are currently pouring through everything. Now, I understand that not doing a personal analysis of these documents opens up a blind spot to my understanding of the conflict. Nature of the beast. It's just not a path I'm super interested in going down. I'd also pass along a word of caution to anyone who holds a clearance or currently associated with the U.S. military to steer clear of digging into these documents on personal devices. I'm not a lawyer, but it's looking more and more like they're really going to come down hard on this guy, and there's no good reason to put yourself in the middle of that mess. All right, a couple things here that I thought were worth getting into around the leaks. First, I've seen some folks start talking about how all of this information was already known, so the only surprise is why the government has classified information that's been in the public domain for months. I'd start by saying, isn't that a positive for anyone wanting to know what's actually going on? If classified documents are, in some cases, going off the same data open source accounts on Twitter are using, that probably shows that those accounts have been doing some pretty good work. On the other hand, this gets into how things become classified. Let's say one of these briefs was a report on how the weather was set to impact the coming weeks of the war in Ukraine. Really important and something that military leadership is always going to be interested in. 99% of that data could be from weather.com, accessible to all of us, completely unclassified. Although unclassified doesn't automatically mean anyone can release it to the public, but there could be one little satellite image that turns the whole presentation top secret. That could be an image available from Maxar, but in this case was taken by the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, so it comes with a classification. So while all of the information is nothing new or groundbreaking, and even the image could be obtained by you or I, the overall presentation is now top secret. I think there's a belief that classified presentations or pieces of intel might be this totally separate, unique storyline of like an alternate universe we don't have any idea about. But in reality, most information is already out there, and intelligence is used to just fill in some unknown or questionable gaps. The next item that I think is really easy to overlook is that these leaks are often just one piece of the puzzle that we're forced to consider out of context. In this case, we have briefing documents designed for a very specific audience. And in any situation, you have to make assumptions as to what your target audience knows and doesn't know. So with what's been released, we're missing the context that led up to these reports. Essentially, a single classified brief isn't designed to stand alone. Whoever's in the intended audience is generally expected to have some sort of background knowledge on the subject, and the current brief is an update or used to bring them up to speed. In some cases, this is absolutely crucial, and the leaked documents make little to no sense without that context. But in others, like estimated casualty counts, there's not really a ton of background needed to understand that piece of information. Now, before I get into the damage that this and any leak can cause the United States, it's worth hitting on the accuracy of classified materials. In this case specifically, the leaked documents were briefing slides. That means that rather than raw intelligence like an image or a soundbite, it's been through some level of analysis. That analysis is done by people, and people make mistakes. Then there's the risk that the data they're making analysis off of is bad. If they start out with incorrect data, then the finished intelligence product can just be straight up wrong. But it's classified, so it feels like it should be accurate. Now, the argument for accuracy is that for information to be presented to government leaders, there's an expectation that it's been reliably sourced, vetted, and put through a rigorous analysis process. That's tricky. I mean, the lead up to the Iraq War is one of those events that doesn't lend a ton of confidence. More and more, there's evidence that the intel community was somewhat strong-armed into finding evidence to fit a storyline rather than present what their information actually showed. On the other hand, the U.S. intel community pretty well nailed the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Personally, I was kind of doubtful there. It seemed like such strong statements to make that could easily be proven wrong, but then, sure enough, Russia charged right ahead with their plans even after they were called out. So, anyways, when considering the accuracy of the information in these documents, it very well could be spot on, but simply being classified and used in presentations to U.S. military leadership doesn't guarantee that it's free of error. There's this aura of mystique around classified materials that I understand. It's the secrets you're not supposed to know, a look behind the curtain, that's one of the reasons that these leakers sometimes are presented as whistleblowers bringing out the truth. It's a heated debate every time, and it's no different here. But either way, any leaked classified data is a major problem for the United States. Part of the challenge for U.S. intelligence here is that rather than just uncovering old secrets that the government didn't want public, this leak is tied to ongoing events. So I believe the documents release started in December and went through March, and the knowledge of the leak really went public in early April, so they were around a month old. That means it's going to have a direct impact on U.S. intelligence gathering capabilities right now. First, it reduces the confidence people have in us to keep their secrets, making it less likely more people will share. I mean, think about any potential assets the U.S. has inside of Russia right now. They're risking their lives and possibly the lives of their families to share intelligence with the United States. That could be for any number of reasons. Maybe they want to see change in Russia, or maybe it's simply for money. They get paid to provide details of Russian military planning and operations. In this hypothetical situation, imagine how scared that person is right now, wondering if anything can be traced back to them. At the very least, they're going to slow any ongoing reporting, but they could just stop providing information altogether. Then you have the people who might be considering sharing intelligence with the United States. Maybe it's about a humanitarian crisis being covered up by a government, and this person wants to bring forward information about the truth of what's happening in country X. But now they see that hundreds of classified documents are circulating on the internet. If I were in their shoes, I'd have to think twice about coming forward. Part of the agreement when disclosing intelligence to the United States is the idea that your identity won't be shared. You won't be discovered for what you've done, but the information you've provided can be put to use in some way, shape, or form. That trust is now eroded. Hopefully it'll come back eventually, but of course that's no guarantee. And no matter how you feel about our intelligence community, receiving credible tips and secret information plays a major role into their ability to prevent attacks here and abroad. Now, the second major issue here is that these leaks provide information to our adversaries on how and what we've collected, which is potentially the biggest impact of all. It's not that Russia, China, or any other adversary learns what we know about them, but they can discover how we found that out. Any rational actor on the other side of that news changes how they operate and communicate. Some of these means and sources could have been years in the making, and with one leak, we're now shut off from that pipeline of information, and there's no guarantee it'll ever be opened back up. This is why the declassification process is so complicated. Not to say the classification and declassification of items is always the right move, but there's a ton of nuance into what should and shouldn't be open for current public consumption. Of course, there's the valid argument that too much is classified and those designations are used to keep more from the public view than is actually necessary. Totally fair, and that's another long debate that a lot of folks have been having over the past few years. I mean, things can end up with a classification that is a bit excessive, and then it is a serious undertaking to try to get that removed. But when we're talking about intelligence gathered on foreign nations or actors, it's very hard for a single analyst to leak something that doesn't have major second or third order consequences. They just don't have the full picture. And that's not a knock on the airmen here or any analyst. I don't know the full picture. Far from it. Very few people actually would, and it would take deliberations between those folks to determine if something can be made public without hampering our intelligence gathering capabilities going forward. Again, my intent here isn't to prove or disprove anything in the documents, just some context to understand how things get classified and what the fallout can be when something intended for a select audience gets released into the public.